After quitting my factory job and having trouble finding a job worth the money, I came across a job advertisement in the local town paper. Hiring. Night shift security guard. No experience needed. Call Maurice at phone number listed below. I called the number and was greeted by an elderly man. He informed me to come in on the next day, and he would show me around and fill me in. "So, I'm hired?" I asked him. "Yeah, kid." I went in the next day and showed up for the first interview, about 15 minutes early. "Hey, if you're not early, you're late." I was informed to go to the side door, where the security office was, so I wouldn't be interfering with those at the funeral home who were mourning a loved one. A short man with wrinkles and a nice, tight white haircut, wearing a security uniform, was smiling at me. He had a white caterpillar above his lip, stained slightly black with coffee. "You must be Conway. Are you named after the singer?" he asked. "Probably. My mother sure loves old country music." "Don't you call that old?" He let out a chuckle and reached his frail hands out to mine. I shook his hand and didn't expect it to be as firm as it was. They put me over the hiring process, and you were the first to put in, so I believe in giving chances. "I sure appreciate it," I told him. "Yes, sir. You'll be working on Monday through Friday, 11 to 7 p.m. He went through the pay, which was exactly what I was making at the factory. He also explained to me that there were only 2 weekend guys, and they worked 12-hour shifts. He filled me in on their names, Jacob and Robert. "You may have to fill in for them," he told me. He also told me I could have his day shifts when he is dead and cold, and that he doesn't want to retire until he has to. Now I've had this job since I was about your age. It's a good job. He filled me in on how to watch the cameras and answer the phone calls, though it wouldn't happen much at night, unless it was a prank call or something. He also told me what times I should patrol the area. "The biggest rule is to respect the dead," he told me. I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but he went on. "Our last guy we had was an old coot that kicked the bucket. May he rest in peace. We shook hands on the way out of his office, and he offered me one more piece of advice. I understand at night it might be a little bit scary. I've worked a few night shifts myself. You're the only person that will be here, and I get that. You may get the heebie-jeebies, but be respectful of the dead, and don't let anybody in under any circumstance. I have my keys, and so do the other guys." I felt excited coming in on my first night shift. Jackson let me in and handed me my new badge. I offered him a donut as I settled into the office, and he left, going home. I checked the camera screen while sipping on my coffee. I didn't have any areas I was supposed to check for another hour, and nothing was going on. So I brought my iPad and put on Seinfeld to kill the time. Maurice said there wouldn't be any issues with killing time, as long as I didn't interfere with the job. 2 hours have gone by, and I walked the halls with my issued flashlight. Then I heard a knock at the front door. I scooted back to the office, and seeing that it was Maurice knocking, the knocking became a banging. He was also wearing street clothes. "Conway, open up, kid. I need in." I walked over to the door and spoke through it. "What can I do you for?" "Listen, I need in. I forgot my medication." "What medication?" I asked. "That doesn't matter, but I need in." "Don't you have your keys on you?" I asked, remembering his earlier statement. "Keys? No, I forgot them." Now I remembered that he had pulled out his office key, and they were attached to his key ring that also held ones for his home, truck, and other things. "Well, how did you get here?" I asked. "In my vehicle." "What color is your car?" I repeated. "Black." "You don't drive a car. You drive a red truck." He began banging on the door, and his voice became much, much deeper and slightly distorted. "Let me in this door so I get my medication or I'll fire you," he proclaimed. I turned around and ran back to the office and tried to tune out the noise he made. He looked up at the camera with a very wide and unnerving grin. "Smart boy." He turned around and walked off into the night. Hours passed, and it was about time I go and walk the area where the bodies were kept in lockers. I knew it was going to smell like cleaning supplies and be cold, so I put on my jacket. Now I glanced at the camera down there, and I froze in place. There were people standing in the area, just standing around talking. If I would have been thinking, I would have called the cops. But who was to say the cops that were coming were actually law enforcement and not whatever I just saw outside earlier? I ran down to the area with my flashlight moving left to right. I opened the door and saw the lockers where the bodies were kept were open, and a group of dead people standing and having a conversation. One turned to me. "Hey there, that's the last thing I remembered before fainting." I woke up shortly after, and the dead were standing around me. It was scary, but also heartbreaking. Here stood someone's grandfather, someone who died by suicide, some others, and one that looked like they were butchered badly in life. "What the hell is happening?" The grandpa spoke up. "I found a note left on the table, and it explains we're going to be alive for another 10 minutes or so. Then we go back to our lockers." What? I stammered out. "Beats me," he said with a shrug. Now I looked at the lady that was butchered. Her throat was cut, stab marks through her body that made her sundress a stained crimson. What happened to you?" I asked. "Someone broke into my home and did this." "Do you know who it was?" "I don't, but I want them to suffer the way I did," she stated. She began describing a man having dark and short hair, but also having a snake tattoo on his arm. He also had prison neck tattoos, and she didn't understand what they were. The others stood around and listened. They all began mumbling about their lives and enjoying their last bit of time. 4 a.m. pops up on my watch, and there they go, back into their lockers as if their legs were forcing them to. I considered making a run and leaving. I checked all the cameras outside to make sure that no one's at the front door, not even that thing from earlier. But I didn't feel it was worth the risk. As soon as it became 7 on the dot, Maurice opened up with his keys and patted me on the back. He was sipping from a cup of coffee. "Okay, kid, let's talk about all this. I'll keep you guys updated as I know more."